as I just said in Spanish, when we're done with school, one of the biggest questions we ask ourselves is, am I ready? Am I ready to be that physical therapist, sports doctor, chiropractor, sports and rehab coach, etc.? I'm going to be focusing obviously on my career, the career development of exercise science. I'm doing this because somebody requested me on Instagram, and I think it's a really cool idea to give you guys a little bit of my perspective. What is to grow in this industry, which is kind of complicated. It's not easy to understand it, but you can do pretty well if you do these 7 points that I think are very important to understand. I know this is a topic that can really expand. You can really talk a lot about it. I love helping people when they ask me this type of questions. But as you know, as the time and the platform, I just have a certain amount of time. So these 7 points I hope are helpful and you guys can get something positive out of this video. The first point is that school is not enough. I mean, just sitting in class for, a certain type of hours or certain type of days of the week, it's not enough to be, someone professional. I think schools lack a lot of application of theory. I mean, you can learn a lot about theory, but when it comes down to application, that craft and art of coaching, it really lacks that. And that's going to kind of jump into point number 2, which is I consider that it's very important to start working as soon as possible, whether it's an internship or a volunteer job. And needless to say, get a job as a coach. Saying this because I know it just didn't happen to me, and it has happened to a lot of people. You graduate from school, like myself, go to 24 Hour Fitness, which was my first job really officially as a coach, and I was having trouble really applying that coaching factor. Knew a lot, had a lot in my head about theory and how to do this, but when it came down to really working as a coach, which deals with communication, people's goals, how to break that ice and try to teach someone a concept, that was very complicated. And that's why it's so important for me, or for people, to just, as when they're in college, get out there, get out of your comfort zone, go coach, go learn, go see cases, go try to see if you like what you're doing. Maybe inside of the world of exercise science, there's a certain type of thing that you prefer than another thing. Kind of like what happened to me. I started as a strength and conditioning coach, moved more into the rehab world. And that kind of takes us to point number 3, which is don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to make a mistake, don't be afraid to say don't know. People think just because, I've worked somewhere and I've been, a little longer in this career now, which I still consider myself have a long ways to go to be where I want to be, or consider myself a really top high coach. There's many times where I ask people for help, or I simply say, man, I don't know, or I made a mistake and I'm like, man, how do I get this thing to be better? Because I'm not getting the results I want, because the other thing that really matters in this career. And I've had moments where I have to call people or organize video chats on Skype or on Zoom or anything, or on FaceTime, and just to be able to get those results, because I'm a human being. I don't know everything, and there's times where I need that help. So, for example, I've had cases with people with lower back pain or hip pain where I've had to call someone, yo, you've been doing great with this kind of stuff. How can you help me? How can you guide me with this type of stuff? And that's okay. That's part about being a professional, is not having to know everything, but know how to problem solve, which is a big one that people should really learn, especially in this career. Problem solving is huge. And that is done by a lot of times by asking questions. So don't be afraid to do that. Number 4, you got to keep updating, keep investing in education. Just because you're done with school doesn't mean you're done. This career moves forward. If you go 10 plus years ago, when we talked about ACL reconstructions, people will go right after surgery, go immobilized, stuck in a brace. That is old school. You're doing that shit today, man, that's old shit. Today, you don't immobilize nothing. You go straight to movement, try to load weight bear on that leg, try to get yourself to move forward, try to get yourself better, quicker into the rehab and what matters the most, which is able to get to that certain type of goal, whether it's sporting or just a simple healthier lifestyle. That is something that if you look back in, like I said, back into the day, it is very different from what it was 10 years ago to today. And there's things moving forward in that concept. And needless to say, the other ones that are around this world of exercise science. So it's super important to stay updated. You want to get good results, and you want to be able to stay up to date with things. So I know it's hard. It's not easy, even for myself. There's times where I'm like, oh my God, like that just came out when? And you got to start looking at stuff because there's a lot of information. But it is a key factor to be able to do well in this career. Obviously, this is going to take us to connections, which is kind of falls also with point number 3. I think these 3 really go together, because to be able to keep updated, to be able to not be afraid about making mistakes or not knowing you have to make those connections, whether it's with your patient, with your clients, with other professionals, that is part of growing as a coach or a professional in the realm of exercise science. I'm going to tell you, with education and this type of stuff, thanks to connections, I've been able to learn about new concepts or new things that are coming out that is super important for myself to apply with my job, with the people that I'm working with. And then the last two, which kind of falls into business, I separated them into two, which is mostly to learn how to sell or communicate, or, you got to learn a bit about the industry. Why am I talking about this? When I started my job at 24 Hour Fitness, I remember my first boss, he told me something. He said, you know a lot, Berto, but you got a problem. You do not know how to sell your service. You don't know how to build rapport with your clients. You don't know how to be confident as a coach. A coach is somebody who's confident, nobody who knows his shit. Even if you don't really know it, you know how to project someone who knows what they're doing. You want to project control. You want to project someone who's secure about your job. And to be able to do that, you got to know how to sell that service. And I didn't know how to do that. And let's think about it. Whether you're a private coach, you have your own business, you're an entrepreneur, or you're working a professional job like a professional sports team like I am, or at a hospital or anything, you got to be able to sell that service to that certain type of person so they can buy that what you're saying is going to help them. Simple as that. That is not as simple as you think many times. I have players where, because of their personalities and everything, it's been a little tougher. But with time, obviously, I've been able to teach them, hey, this is how we're going to work. And by the way you talk, by the way you handle yourself, by the way you communicate, the way you show your body language and all that, that's going to be huge. And to those people to say, hey, I want to work with you. I trust in what you're saying. I'm going to buy your product. And that is something that I wish people told me since day one. Because, we sit in class, like I said, hours, learning about theory, all this type of stuff. You think the client gives a shit? Only thing the client gives a shit about is, did I get this? Is this going to take me there? Yes or no? That's all. All the other stuff, that's for you. It doesn't matter. You can say all this science kind of nice little words. Patients, clients don't give a single fuck about that stuff. All they care about is, am I going to be able to get those results that I'm freaking caring about? So how are you going to do that? By communication, by knowing how to sell your service. And then point number 7, which is learning about business itself and is kind of understanding the industry in which you're in. Know how to move inside the industry. A lot of people think that just because somebody is at a sports team or working at a fancy hospital, very known place, or a known clinic, these people are doing great there with their job, they're happy, and then second, economically. And that's not true. A lot of times, unfortunately, in our career, a lot of us aren't valued as much. So you're going to have to find value somewhere else. For example, in my perspective, or in my view, to give you mine, working with professional sports, a lot of people think, oh man, Berto's doing great there. Actually, where I do great is more on my entrepreneur side. Sports, professional sports, I kind of do it in a different perspective. I do it because of experience, I do it because of connections, and I do it because of the amount of resume and marketing that it gives me. And that's how I began to understand the industry. And I began to grow, and I'm doing both. I'm doing great in both. And that's the one thing I took time for me to, okay, this is how I'm actually going to do well, make a living in this industry. Doesn't mean you have to go my way. There's many different ways to go. There's many different ways people do this thing, but you got to know how to do this, and you got to start getting out there. That's why it's so important to get the fuck out of the school thing. Get the fuck out of that simple little secure school classroom crap. That's not going to take you that far. You're gonna have to get out of your comfort zone and start getting out there, get hurt, make mistakes, learn how to, hit the floor, get back up. It's gonna be part of growing in this career. And that's one thing I wish people would really tell young aspiring coaches, doctors, chiropractors, physical therapists, anybody who wants to be in this industry. You got to learn that. And there's a lot of people out there you can talk to, a lot of people who are even way further than me. They're going to give you just similar advices like this to be able to become a professional. So with that being said, I hope you guys take some good stuff out of this. Simple little 7 points really help me understand how to grow in this industry. And if you're in it, I hope you do well. Keep grinding, keep working hard. Don't be afraid to move forward. All I'm going to say, it takes time, but be very perseverant.